is that I knew that there was a real human being named Brian Coyle, and he lived across from me when I lived in the D building, and so he was my friend. And so later years then, he was important. He got elected as a city council person, and he was instrumental in getting money so that the Coyle Center could be developed like you have it today, which was really. Other organizations that were really important to me was the Mixed Blood Theater. And as I said, that used to be a firehouse, but then Jack Ruler, who is still one of my heroes, started a theater called Mixed Blood Theater, which again had a lot to do with what I believe in. He really was trying to mix blood and having people understand each other's cultures, and he's still doing that to this day, so that's a really, really important thing in our neighborhood. He has some plays about Somali. I think he had a play about Somali last year, which is one of the first ones in the neighborhood, or even in the city, to help people understand each other. And always hires people that are respectful of the tradition so that it is accurate. The West Bank was a home of a lot of radicals, and I'm a kind of in-between kind of person. I mean, I kind of believe part of my spiritual system is you try to look at things both ways. Plus, I was really sold on Cedar Square West because I really believed in the whole idea behind it. But I found the neighborhood didn't necessarily agree with me. There were a bunch of hippies and a lot of anarchists. People would tell me, oh, there's communists that live here and there's Marxists. And I thought, I don't even know what they are. I just want to live in a place that's good for me. So there was a lot of controversy around it. And there hadn't been a high density building, a real tall building like that before in the city. And they didn't believe that there should be. And actually, the way the whole development was, there were supposed to be 5 more kind of little Cedar Riversides, and they thought that would be way too many people. And in fairness to them, there wasn't any place for kids to play at that time, really, not much of anywhere. So if you're going to have people with kids, I understood that they were upset about some of those things. But for me as a single person, it was a good place because I had ready-made friends all around me. At that time, the design too was interesting. It was all connected up within the buildings. You could walk from the M building to the D building without going outside. And then there was a plaza to come across the street here on the other side of Cedar Avenue. So it was designed differently, and the whole design was really based on creating community of people. So, but as I said, the neighborhood later then did a lawsuit. It's called an environmental impact statement, which was a legal document to say we should not have this many people living. I don't even know all the content that's in it, but that was the big fight. That
place where, you know, it's more of a big city in a way. You know, rather than just being a neighborhood or an area. I mean, first you have the large concentration of Somalis and their businesses, and it's marked. Everything about Cedar says, you know, it's different in other neighborhoods. I mean, I really don't, I can't really describe it, but it's just, if you live in the area, you just have that feeling that it's different than anywhere else. I mean, first you have the buildings that's colored and they stand out and they're odd in a way, you know. So when you're driving by and people see these colored buildings, and immediately they start thinking like, what is this place? Well, what is, you know, who lives there? And so, and when you actually live in the place, it's a lot. For me, I was, the perfect word would be lively. You know, the place is alive. Yeah, we have a lot of Ethiopians, Oromos, Koreans, Vietnamese, Hispanic people. I mean, yeah, we have a lot, but then there's so many Somalis or East Africans, I should say, that it's hard not to, you know, for that area to be not to be recognized as in a way a Somali hub, or, you know, a place where that many Somalis live. You know, it's hard to go around it. I mean, other people are represented in the area, but it's mostly Somali. So that's how I recognize it. That's how a lot of.
I grew up in Somalia, Mogadishu. It was nice. I never been to the ocean side of Somalia, but I lived in a place called close to Brandir. That's where I lived. So it was somewhat looked like a country in a way because they had so many trees.
And so what was your earliest memory from there?
My earliest memory is when me and my mom went to go visit my auntie in a place called Galkayo. She's a folklore. She has goats and sheep, and she had one camel. I remember riding on that camel once, and I used to fight with my little cousin about when he brings back the goats that I was gonna tell them I was gonna put them back.
So what was your school like?
My school was different because my mom took me to a private lessons to learn Somali, but that didn't last long. I somehow left after a week, but then I used to go to a Duksi, which is an Islamic school, in the morning, so I would go there in the morning, then come out for lunch, then go back and come out in the evening, like when it's 4.
Was that fun? Did you, anything about that?
It was fun. It was a different way of learning it here. Like over there, we have some certain board that we ride with it, and it's different.
What is the term for that?
It's called the loh in Somali.
Can
So
you tell us a little bit more about it?
it's a wooden board. So like it's made out of wood, and you buy it from the market, and you use the ink to write the Quran with it.
So, what is
Yes, that's what you do. You in Somalia, you write your Quran down on that little board, and you learn it. And once you learn that part, you go wash it. Then you write a new part. So I lived in a place called Jam'adaha, which is a university. So when back in the days when when Somalia had a government, it used to be a college. So the buildings we lived in was actually for the kids, the students who went to a college, and there was like a big hall. That's where I went to Duksi. So he had a floor, so it wasn't on the ground, but he had a floor. That's where we used to sit on.
Was it a big school? Did you have a lot of kids in your classroom? Or?
Yeah, it was a lot of kids. So it's a big place. So one side sit the girls, and the other side are the boys, and the teacher sits in the middle.
So what was your family like?
My family was small, I would say, because it was only me and my mom. And I do have sisters, but they lived together. They didn't live with us.
So what about your dad?
My dad died when I was 2 or 1, I think.
So you grew up with your mom.
Yes.
What were your friends like?
I would say my friends were fun. I remember, like, if I wanted to hang out with my friends, I have to take a nap. Otherwise, my mom wouldn't let me go outside. And whenever we have some kind of events in the neighborhood that my mom would go to, or somewhere like in the Ramadan, if she goes to the mosque, or gathering with the old ladies, me and my friends would go sneak around and do stuff.
What kind of stuff?
Like we would do our own thing instead of being with them at that moment.
In your neighborhood, were there playgrounds? Were there places for kids to hang out? Can you kind of describe what the neighborhood looked like? Or do you
I don't
remember?
think Somalia has playgrounds, but it's like you just go. There was one called Grir, so you make a hole on the ground and you put a lot of rocks in it and you would throw a rock out and you try to bring all those rocks outside of that little hole. And each person gets a turn. It's you and another person. That's how you play it. It's mostly for girls. And I used to play hide and seek.
Hide and seek.
Hide and seek. And running, I guess, even though I don't like running at this day, but back then I used to love running.
It seems like you had a sense you could go anywhere in the neighborhood. Is that kind of what it was like? That
Yeah, in Somalia, everywhere is the playground. Once you come outside, you're at your playground, I guess. Everybody in the neighborhood basically knows each other, so nobody's afraid of nobody, I guess. And when new people come, we're interested in them, I guess. Okay. I also played Mancala sometimes. Also, I think there's like some kind of other game, checkers or something, or there's other games that even older people play. So it's not just kids who play games. It's like the older people also sit around and play games. There was no police in our neighborhood, I guess, because there was no government in the country. So that little neighborhood took care of itself, and the people, the older people, were the head of the neighborhood. They know what's going on in the neighborhood and what's going on with everybody, and they solve their own problems.
I'm a Muslim. I'm an Islamic person. I was born being Islamic, and hopefully I will die being Islamic, inshallah. And I'm an open-minded person. I like to learn about new things and also new stuff, but I stick to my religion more than anything.
My name is Burhan Muhammad. I'm 22 years old, and I live in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood. Well, I grew up in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood. I've been there since I was about 7 years old, and from what I can remember, it wasn't really any different than any other child growing up in any neighborhood in the world or in this country. So it wasn't all that special, but I enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time in the Bryan Cook Community Center, so a lot of my memories are that they come from that place. That's a place where I associate me growing up and being with friends. That's the place I can remember. I went to several schools, and a lot of my schools were very diverse, except for probably one. There was a lot of Somali, Hispanic, Asians. I had a pretty much. I've seen every type of person, people. So it was a learning process. I grew up with my mom and my sister. So my mom worked pretty hard, worked several jobs, and I mean, it was all right. It wasn't bad. Well, I don't have any recollection of Somalia, but I was born in Ethiopia, and we must have lived in Somalia for about a year before the Civil War broke out. And then we moved to Kenya, a refugee camp. And, I would say it wasn't. It was a lot different for me than it was for my mom. She really saw how hard it was. But for me, it was more of I was being clothed, fed. I had a shelter, so it wasn't as horrible, that it really was. It wasn't as bad as people think.
How old were you when you left Dadaab?
5.
5 years?
And we lived in Nairobi, Kenya for a little bit, and that was through basically the process of coming to America, and then we moved to Detroit, Michigan. After that, shortly we moved to Minnesota. First arrived in America, we lived in Detroit, Michigan, and it was for me, from what I can remember, it really felt like we didn't leave Africa. I mean, we didn't leave. It wasn't really any different. I mean, it was like almost extreme poverty. It wasn't, everybody pretty much. I lived around African Americans, so it really did feel like it was that we never left. And it was pretty bad, and one of the reasons we left is because my mom couldn't find a job there, and so we lived we were on welfare for a while, and my mom couldn't really take that, so we moved to Minnesota because of financial. Minnesota's a lot. I mean, when it comes to the opportunity.